Hi, my name is Mark Strassman. I play Punishing Maverick in the Legacy format, and I'm just doing a quick tournament report discussing my latest results, top 8 of the Quest for Power tournament in Maryland. Got a nice little prize today. Only top 8. Wound up losing it the first round, but pretty happy to get a dual land. So, this is the mana base. 7 fetches, 4 of them are Windswept Heath, 3 of them are Wooded Foothill. Typically it doesn't matter, but I'm running Plains, so you do want the the Windswept Heath over the Wooded Foothill. If you didn't run a Plains, then it wouldn't matter, at least in this build. 3 Groves, not really necessary to run 4. If you can fit it, make it work. But I think 3 is really all you need. 3 Wastelands, that is something that I feel like is all you really need. This deck is not as tempo oriented as the other Maverick decks. Running Punishing Fire and not running Thalia in the main deck does make, Wasteland a little bit less, it's more of a card you want to search and waste them out with Night than it is you're anticipating on just top decking it and wreaking havoc with it. This is a flex card here, the Horizon Canopy. I've been running it for years. I don't think it's a necessity, but I really haven't seen any reason to take it out. Maybe if aggro decks become really big and your life total becomes more relevant, perhaps it's something to reconsider. 3 red sources. Something I think is really relevant. It comes up in a later game where you really want to be able to have multiple red sources to cast multiple Punishing Fires per turn. Sometimes 3 feels like the bare minimum. And now that Deathrite isn't a card that you can run, Birds of Paradise is the only red producing creature that you have. So I wouldn't dare go under 3. If you were looking to cut corners, you could probably do an 8th fetch, but again, you're really playing greedy when you're forcing yourself to run 6 red sources in a deck that runs 3 red main deck cards, which are Punishing Fire. And even if you get a 4, or you're running something spicy that's red, that's not Punishing Fire, it just, you kind of have to stick to the script with the archetype. So this is the mana base. Won't dwell on that too much longer. While I'm setting up, I do have another video that was posted about 7 months ago with the Deathrite Shaman metagame, and if you're interested, please check that out. Might be some redundancy, but let's go into creatures. So, for this event, my friend Stoneforge Mystic was at 4. I'll get into that in a little bit because it's a little uncommon. Knight was at 4. That is not uncommon. That is the standard, and I would not touch that. Mother was at 4. Some people play 3. I wouldn't. Noble was at 3. And Birds of Paradise was at 1. Ranger, Ooze, Teague, Excavator, Pride Mage, and let me get this all in the shot. Okay. Alright, so for those of you who know the format, you can distinguish these cards pretty easily. For those who don't, not that I wouldn't want you to watch the video, but I do feel like probably viewing other content and getting more familiar with the Legacy format, or just looking up the cards would be relevant. So let's start with the Mana Dorks. If you play red in your deck, Birds of Paradise is a necessity. I am not going to say that you can have a reason to run something different, but before I even touch this deck, before, I even really thought about this deck, when Maverick was a tier 1 deck, Punishing Maverick always had a bird. I think it's great, but historically, look up Punishing Maverick. You will see 1 bird, 3 nobles. I could see in a Delver meta, or some sort of Wasteland meta, upping the Matador count to 5. Currently, I don't think that's necessary, but something to consider. Ooze is not quite as good in this version of Maverick, as I do not run a Gaia's Cradle. I do run, you know, kind of a tighter, uglier mana base, and getting this card to its full potential is not as easy in this version. This card you could run 2 of in the right metagame. Stoneforge Mystic is kind of dying down overall in what I've been seeing, as well as this card here, which we'll get into in the sideboard. I think I'd sooner see 2 of these, no, 1 and 1 rather, than 2 Pride Mages. So 1 KOA, 1 Pride Mage, I would sooner see in the main deck than 2 of these, but it's still a relatively new card, you know, Night of Autumn, so I can't say that that's definitely right, but that's where my head's been. This card's relatively new in the world of Legacy, but as far as this archetype is concerned, and Loam, Aggro Loam, and perhaps some other decks, card's proven its worth. Run it. Put it in your Maverick deck for sure. Scrib Ranger and Punishing Maverick is not quite as powerful. Again, I run so many lands that are not forests, but it's still a card that I think is worth putting in your deck for sure, even in Punishing Fire. And probably what people want to talk about the most right now is this at 4. In my opinion, if you're going to run this card, run at least 3, probably run 4. The reason why is Batterskull is a card that is the 2nd best equipment to search with that. Jittei's number 1, obviously, but you want to get your Batterskull. Why else are you running Stoneforge Mystic? These swords are kind of mediocre. Even against True Name Nemesis, in most cases, in the matchup, I would sooner have Batterskull than Sword of Fire and Ice, or some other sword of this and that, because the lifelink, it's a race, and if you can create a standstill with Batterskull, or even Jittei, it's probably a better game plan than it is to just try to race a deck, especially a Delver deck. So, if you're going to do it, if you're going to run Stoneforge Mystic, play the stupid Batterskull, and probably run at least 3. I'm sure somebody's winning tournaments not doing that, but I believe that wholeheartedly. If I didn't run this, I would run 2 Jitteis. Forget about the whole Stoneforge Mystic thing, and go a little bit wider with the creatures. Perhaps the Night of Autumn, perhaps something spicy like, Tireless Tracker. But I really do feel like, or even maybe Thalia Main, which I've tested, but I don't really love, and I'll get into that later when we talk sideboard. So these are the creatures. Hate it or love it. Not even going to touch on Night of the Reliquaries, Night of the Reliquary. In this deck, it's the best creature to have, even without the Dark Depths combo. Alright. Spells. And sorry, I kind of have a little bit of a cold, so if I sound kind of congested, I apologize. Alright. So, get spread out a little bit more. Kind of a small pile. 4 Stoneforge Mystic, 3 equipment. Be like Death and Taxes. It's a successful archetype. May as well just cop what they're doing. Even if they're not winning as much now, they have the right idea when it comes to Mystic. Most relevant thing, probably the 2 Sylvan Libraries. Why run a one of that you cannot search for? Like these cards, which you can search for. and just hope to get it. I believe that if you have a 7-card hand, you will have a 11% chance to have this in your hand. You know, any one of some sort of math, combinatorics or permutations. You know, someone smarter than me in articles I've read throughout the years break down the odds, and you're not going to see it. Run 2. Yeah, you'll see it twice sometimes. Yeah, some matchups it's not great, but like, this isn't making soup. This isn't making, you know, art. You're trying to play a well-oiled machine. You want consistency. You know, if this card is good in your deck, you know, same with really anything, planeswalkers, whatever. Don't just run a 1 of. You're not a brainstorm deck. You're not a cantrip deck. You're not a deck that really wants to go like the total long game. You're kind of a mid-range deck, and there's no reason to just hope that, you know, you have this 11% chance of having this card in your hand, and that's like a good deck making decision. I mean, if it comes down to it and you just have one slot and want to throw it in there, I guess whatever, but overall the card's good. The card's good. Run 2. So yeah, the 3 Punishing Fire, if the meta game changes to, like, you know, Death and Taxes and Infect and a bunch of little creatures, I could see bumping it up to 4. So this is 4, 8, 10, 13, 16 non-creature spells, which is a lot, and you can see why Thalia would be kind of difficult to fit that in there. Possible. I played it, but overall I didn't think that's where you wanted to be in the main deck. We'll go to the board. 2 of these, 4 of these, 3 of these. We'll call these the same card, even though they're technically different cards. This card's Choke. I apologize for the art. It's you know, they're expensive, but they're hard as heck to tell what they are. So I'm going to sort these with the Pyros, so they're a little easier to tell what they would be. All right. All right, let's start with Thalia. Thalia on the board. Name a better sideboard card. I dare you. I double dare you. Thalia. You know, you look at every Maverick, Death and Taxes list, they're running 4. Maybe one dude's running 3. Put Thalia in your stupid Punishing Fire sideboard. Just, yeah. Pyroblast. I run a 2-1 split. Play around Surgical, Cabal Therapy. Technically, Red Elemental Blast is slightly better because it can't get misdirected. But the chance of being misdirected are so small, it really doesn't matter. I would just split them up. Choke. If you need a card to beat Miracles, which is one of your worst matchups, that's a winnable matchup. There it is. That's probably better than any Planeswalker. Stopping them is more important than whatever you're doing. Their cards are better. Your cards are small and dumb. Stop them. Win the game with your dumb cards. Backup Teague. Don't leave home without it. Sometimes Teague dies, and when Teague's good, have a backup. Bog. I don't know why anybody wouldn't play Bog. Yeah, Surgical's kind of better in the hand, but like having the option with Knight is something that maybe it's my playstyle. 2 KOA. I could see, you know, changing these 2 for something else, and running, you know, 2 relevant cards in a room that you're coming into. You know, if you think Graveyard's there, you know, run your Surgicals or something. But for this event, I can't say I regretted the 3rd Thalia, but I didn't, or the 4th Thalia, but you know, I could see in the future, you know, cutting these down to 1-1. Overall, I was hoping this card would be more of a main deck card eventually, but I think it's just really an upgraded version of Reclamation Sage, and today I gained 4 life with it against a Delver deck, and I'll get into that later when I get into the tournament side. But it was it's worth it to have one. And this card here, this can come and go. I like it when I run 4 Stoneforge Mystic because against like Grixis Control and Miracles, you're going to want to board out your Jitte and have something else to put in, and protection from white is great, protection from black is great, and if Death Shadow is still lingering in your area, this card's on par with Batterskull in that matchup. You know, once it's out, there's really not too many cards they have that can deal with it. Perhaps like a Sacrifice Effect or, you know, something, but this is another card that can kind of come and go, and if you're not running 4 Stoneforge Mystics, I probably wouldn't bother. So there's that. Now let's get into the tournament. So today I didn't have the best pairings for a Punishing Maverick player. Turbo Depths with Loam against a good player. Somebody who's really done well at like Star City events. I'm not going to call the guy's name out, you know, but he's a solid player, nice guy. And against him, the cards that I was most looking to see, this is, you know, Turbo Depths. They've been running Graveyard Hate. So this card's good, or they've been running Graveyard stuff like Loam. This card is relevant because you can block, you know, the 2020. These are decent, and everything else is kind of, you know, you could consider the Thalias, but they're not really that kind of deck. They run so many creatures that you really can't afford to cut your removal so much. So I think I ended up somewhere like this. Yeah, I think it might have just been this or this, and just kept it pretty simple. Yeah, you know, this would be cool. Could hit some cards with it, but overall, I don't, you know, once you start taking things out, you really start diluting what's good. So these two left, these two came in. Jitte kills their creatures pretty well. Batterskull gains life, you know, which if you can gain some life, it's pretty relevant. So, you know, a lot of ways to look at this. I didn't want to cut my equipment count down to 2 because I don't run Brainstorm, so more than one way to look at it. This one's a little less clean cut, but that was my first matchup, so I started there. Okay, so back at the board, back in the main. Alright, so the next matchup I did was Storm. Storm I won 2-1. Turbo Depths I won, I think 2-0 or 2-1. I forget, but I did get the victory. So Storm, I keep these in, obviously. This is pretty good if they go the Goblins plan. Knight is awesome. Mom is something I don't always cut, but I did cut. Okay, and just because Mark Strassman did it doesn't mean it's necessarily right, but let's have a little discussion. I boarded in all 15 of these stupid cards. That's right. All 15. And what did I take out? 4 swords. Legit. That. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there's one more. One more in there. What did I pull? You know what? I think I just didn't. I think I pulled one of the wastes. That's what it was. And I pulled a bog in. So, if you want to be like Mark Strassman, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 stupid cards out of your stupid deck. And 1, 2, 3, oops, wrong pile, sir. And these 15 came in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Obviously, this is a matchup where you just want Thalia. Had an incredibly close game. I almost died while having a Thalia on board. Past in Flames is a heck of a magic card, and this deck's a little slow, so you can't just run the Thalia and just hope that you can win without a clock. Pulling the moms, I wouldn't always do this, but when you have that many dumb cards to bring in, mom is just like, if they kill your Thalia, it's like they spent that turn, they spent that mana. Hopefully you have a backup Thalia, a backup Gaddock Teague. I'm not saying it's right, but that's where I ended up today with it. And I think that no matter how you adjust your deck, you're going to wind up having some matchups that are kind of unaccounted for. It's kind of impossible to have like a perfect sideboard that covers you from everything. So I'm going to get Dredge next. 2-1. We had some really long matches. Scrib Ranger really won me the game, oddly enough. Right now, Dredge is more of a deck that isn't killing you in burst damage. They're killing you in a longer game with reoccurring zombies and Icarids. And so long as that is the case, Stoneforge Mystic actually is pretty solid. It's a little expensive, but if you can slow their game plan a little bit, or they stumble a little bit, cards like Batterskull and Jitte can really get you there. So that matchup, we'll start with what was good, because I have more that I wanted to pull out than what was actually good. Yeah, it might have just been these two. It's like a really small sideboard. Now that I'm kind of going through this. So Excavator was kind of butt. That card is better when the deck is explosive and they're just trying to, like, reanimate some sort of threat. But yeah, I think that this really might have been it against Dredge, and somehow I'm sitting here with a victory. I think I kept this. So let's really look through. This card, yeah, if they run something that says, like, I can't target the graveyard, it'll upset my ooze, but, like, that's not really going to come up too much. I have a lot of ways to interact with, like, sacrificing Dryad Arbors and stuff. Again, Teague, it's not really the version they've been doing. This card doesn't do anything. Choke. Thalia's cool, but, if you could play a turn 1 Thalia, go for it on the play, with, like, some sort of Mox Diamond deck, but outside of that, not really. And this, if you aren't on the play, you will never use this card. It's just, yeah, you hit a breakthrough, awesome, but if you're not on the play, and, like, if you're on the play and you have, like, a Mana Dork or play this, like, you don't want to just sit there and be passive. It's just not your role. So I think this is a matchup where I won just by, grinding and being bigger than them in the end. And these two left, and those two came in. I kept the Punishing Fires in because, I can kind of shoot my own stuff, which isn't great. But, when they have 1 or 2 bridges in there or more, sometimes you just go for it. And, like I said, like a card like this really isn't, it's 3 mana, is really going to be better than Punishing Fire. So, so far, we're kind of moving through, not looking as impressive as I thought. Infect. On the draw, I died pretty bad. Let's start with the cards that I brought in. So, I went 4 Thalia, 3 Rebs, I should probably turn this. Sorry that I've been doing that for the video. I'm going to try to keep it in mind, but I really don't want to restart right now. So I'm turning them this way. Hopefully it was good enough for those who are viewing. These are the 7 cards that I brought in. These were the cards that were left being considered. Mainly these, you know, choke is like playable. This card could do a thing. This card could do a thing, and these two are pretty butt. So, cards that I pulled out. I pulled the moms. I'm not saying that's right, but, you know, I only have one creature that I really want to block. I pulled a Teague, because Teague really doesn't do that much in the matchup. I pulled the Ooze, because I don't think they run any type of graveyard hate. 3, 4, 5, 6, or graveyard cards that are necessary to hate. And I think at one point I ended up pulling back one of the Thalias, which was a mistake. Yeah, because they're 7 and 6. And I think I played this, you know, minus the Thalia. And then later on when I played against them, I opted to go for Thalia. And if I could do it again, I would probably pull these two out. I thought, you know, hey, you know, they're not going to deal damage to me. I could just draw a shitload of cards, but the deck is just so quick. Sylvan's cool, but you probably want to pull that. So if I could do it again, I'd probably end up somewhere like this. And maybe I'd, you know, throw one of these bad boys in there just in case, you know, something happens with a Sylvan library that they play, or I don't know, you know, maybe you keep a Mom or something, but Mom is just not that great. I really got, you know, I could sit here and tell you, you know, these were the lines and this is how I could have played it, but I don't really think it's going to be one of those tournament reports. I just got back, and you know, it's still fresh in my brain, but that really was one of those ones where it was like, he had it, I didn't have it, and then the game was over. So, there, that was that. Next, I went against Delver. And this gentleman was unfortunate because he had top 8. He was already in top 8 contention. He hadn't lost. I got paired up. And I won. We went 2 games and went to time. And this I'll actually talk a little philosophy on. I won game 1. It was a long game. I won. I had many opportunities to take a big risk game 2, staring down a true name, and I opted to not die as opposed to win. I think it kind of irritated the guy, and I can't blame him. Especially in the moment, you know, you're kind of like, damn, dude, like, just fucking win the game already, or, you know, if he just would do this, but I don't know what's in his hand. I don't know exactly how things are going to play out, and I know that, like, if I won the first one, and we go to a draw, I win, and then I go to top 8. So, I kind of just, like, I didn't play slow, but I didn't play aggressive. So, that sideboard. Here's another boring one. Out goes Teague. In goes 1 KOA. And you can see why I'm kind of, after this video, you can see why I'm probably just going to play 1 KOA in the future. But, you know, that was my Delver board. Card sucks. Card's pretty good. You know, I could put in Rebs and chokes and stuff, but, you know, what am I going to take out? You know, what's really better than this BS when it comes to, like, beating a fair deck, you know? And I really do believe you want Sylvan. If it was, you know, blue-red Delver, like Monastery Swift Spears and stuff, like, yeah, you know, that's not going to fly, but, you know, they waste you, they bolt your creatures, you know, you kind of want something like this if you can afford to have it. I mean, if you have, you know, Path to Exile in your board or something, and you want to put that in over it, it's probably better. But, yeah, I wouldn't go just cutting Sylvan for Pyro or Choke or something like that. So, kind of to summarize, I'm for and won at that point. I won a very grindy match with Scrib Ranger and Jitte, and flying over a true name. Scrib Ranger giving, with Mom, giving my knight protection from blue and from red to get to get through young Pyromancer tokens. Went down to turn 5 of, turns after, time is up, and I actually killed him 2-0 on the very final turn. And I had a Swords to Plowshare in my hand just in case I needed to gain life, to keep myself from dying. So I played safe, kind of upset the guy a little bit, but life goes on. I make it top 8. I go against Infect again, same dude. I was 5th place, he was 4th place. He chose on the play. I boarded, kept the Sylvans in. I didn't think of it until the car ride home, taking the Sylvans out after that matchup. I won the game I was on the play. He won the games where he was on the play. It was not that close, any of the games. There were no really interesting interactions. You go against Infect, you hope to see a handful of Swords to Plowshares, Mana Dorks, and Punishing Fires after you have enough mana to just keep that shenanigans going, Wastelands. Deck's not really that relevant, but, neither is mine, so, I can't fault the guy for playing it. I wish that gentleman the best. I hope he took it out. And I guess while I'm here, I'll discuss the Miracle and Grixis sideboard, and then I'll move on. Alright, so main deck board. Alright, we go against the dreaded Miracle deck. Well, good news. You have probably another 15 cards to bring in, just like the Storm matchup. Now, before people who kind of get a little upset when you start diluting your deck and say, hey, are you really benefiting yourself by playing all these things? You're kind of taking out the core of the deck, kind of how the deck is supposed to function, and, is that really worth it? And in this case, I say, absolutely. Let's discuss why. So we have these 15 cards, and then let's start with the obvious. First card that sucks the most. This guy. Yeah, they do run Monastery Mentor sometimes. Yeah, it's, you die to that, but, you can only run 60 cards, and this is your worst one. Your next worst card